In 1931, Ken Heckler enrolled at Swarthmore College near Philadelphia. Valued for its rigorous academics and progressive ideals, Swarthmore College challenged students academically, socially, and politically.
This was the constant goal of the faculty, not only to challenge the students to think for themselves, but also to think socially and to think about other people.
Faculty challenged students to act, to lend a hand in neglected communities, to inspire neighbors to help one another. Helen Hornbeck received a helping hand from College Press Board Chairman Ken Heckler when he appointed her Swarthmore's first female reporter.
I thought that it was such a kind and benevolent act. He was a recognized eccentric in the student body, and I think one eccentric sometimes recognizes another.
Ken Heckler's considerate, unflappable, and optimistic nature made him well suited for public service.
He was always so cheerful and upbeat and would see the positive side of practically anything, and he had this pixie-ish sense of humor, which, you know, has been evident in his subsequent political behavior.
Heckler graduated from Swarthmore College in 1935. At Columbia University, he earned a master's degree in 1936 and his Ph.D. in public law and American history in 1940. For his doctoral dissertation, Heckler examined a movement during William Howard Taft's presidency to return control of Congress to progressive reformers devoted to the policies of Taft's predecessor, Theodore Roosevelt. While members of the press dubbed it an insurgency, the movement relied upon words and parliamentary procedures rather than guns and explosives.
These insurgents were a group of liberal Republicans who decided to revolt against the right-wing conservative Republicans who were ruling the Senate and the House of Representatives, which at that time was under the thumb of very determined, self-centered friends of corporations who were not carrying out the principles of Abraham Lincoln, who had helped found the Republican Party.
As Heckler hitchhiked across the Midwest, surviving insurgents granted interviews and access to their long-forgotten journals and correspondence. The young historian gradually pieced together the motives and actions shaping the insurgent movement to reform government during the Taft era.
It drove home to me the necessity of the personal side of politics, the fact that politics is made up of a bunch of individual human beings. You have to work with those human beings. The people were the ones that really were the root of democracy.
While earning his Ph.D., Ken Heckler taught at Columbia and Barnard College. Popular on both campuses, the young professor's classes were refreshing and innovative. Heckler brought home the role of individuals in government by bantering with costumed actors over historic events in American politics.
I think that it's very important for students to understand the realistic side of politics, to really prepare them for all of the challenges which they'll face.
This is what they call a West Virginia moose.
And also to get the inspiration of the excitement of public service, which they can get from people that can transmit their own enthusiasm for what they're doing.
Heckler often brought Jane Stewart and her Barnard College classmates face to face with newsmakers in government and politics.
He believed that meeting people was very important, not just reading about them in books. So we had opportunities to go on field trips with him.
Ken Heckler, brushing aside his personal views of Herbert Hoover's presidency, once arranged for his class to interview the former chief executive. Students also questioned New Deal critic and 1940 presidential candidate Wendell Willkie.
I will never forget the meeting because he called me sweetheart. When I asked a question, I said, "You've recently become a Republican, and how is it that you're for free trade? Because Republicans have not traditionally been in that camp." And he said, "Well, if we're going to have one world, we can't have these artificial barriers."
Ken Heckler impressed Columbia University student Bob Zucker by inviting to his classroom Earl Browder, the controversial leader of the Communist Party in America.
Russia, which was the god of the Communist Party, was aligned with Hitler. They had made a pact. I mean, the pact included splitting up Poland and non-aggression and so on. So it was not a very popular move, but yet he felt his students should be exposed to all types of thinking.
Heckler also invited Democratic Party Chair James Farley. As Franklin Roosevelt's presidential campaign manager in 1932, Farley combined a telephone and amplifier to link Roosevelt and Democratic Convention delegates. At Columbia and later Princeton University, the system offered Heckler and his students a practical alternative to face-to-face interviews.
He would set up a telephone connection in the room with a loudspeaker and actually microphones, and he'd say, "Well, we're going to talk to Chief Justice Stone." Sure enough, Harlan Stone was on the phone, Chief Justice of the Supreme Court, and he always had surprises, always something new, and I didn't know anybody who didn't think Ken was a great teacher.
I have seen war.
While teaching at Columbia and Barnard, Heckler also worked with presidential advisor and speechwriter Samuel Rosenman, editing FDR's public papers and addresses.
I give to you assurance that the people of the United States will not stand idly by.
Ken Heckler left his Columbia classroom and moved to Washington in 1941. In addition to his work with Rosenman, Heckler secured employment at various federal agencies, serving in the Office for Emergency Management and the bureaus of the Census and the Budget. Heckler observed firsthand a government going to war.